everybody, and today we're gonna do June books. So it's June 30th, and I just finished my last book of the month, so I thought this would be the perfect time to go over it. So I've read 17 books this month, which is a lot, which is good because the past few months of quarantine have really been slacking. So we're trying to get back, trying to catch up. So I'm just gonna go in order of the books I read. I have my iPad here to remind me of the books I read and the ratings. So the first book was Four Dead Queens by Astrid Schultz something. And basically there are these four, so this was the first book, so it's been like 30 days, but there's like these four, I'm gonna say quadrants. I don't know if they're countries or regions, but there's a queen of each region. So there's this 17-year-old like thief or a liar who, and a counterpart who has to try to find the killer of these four queens. I did not particularly like the book. I gave it 3 stars. I don't know, so I heard a lot of good things about it. It has decent ratings, and I thought it would be kind of like a good kind of alternative universe thriller, detective novel, similar to maybe like Throne of Glass, like the books 1 through 3 that I've read. It looked good. I didn't really like it. I don't know if it was just the writing style or something about it. Was not a fan. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So the next book, which was probably one of my favorite books of the month, and I read this for the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge, which I think I have one more book to read for, so hopefully I'll do a video on that in my experience of the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge. But it was Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. I gave this book 5 stars. I loved it. I knew it was a kind of a more of a classic book that most people read in high school or college, and I did not read it. And honestly, it was pretty long, and generally I don't really like books more over like 350 pages. I don't remember how many pages this was off the top of my head, but I loved it. I thought it was really good. If you guys don't know, it's set in World War II. Kind of each chapter is about a different person in their squadron. It follows the life of one person, Yosarian, who is a bomber, and you kind of learn about the I can't say that word. You learn a lot about kind of the ins and outs of how ridiculous it is in the military, and especially during World War II, and kind of like the pain and sorrow and just general atrocities they went through, but in a very, at least probably for the 3/4 of the book, in a very enlightening, not terrible to read manner. With family in the military, I found it really enlightening and interesting to read and be like, yeah, nothing's really changed as much as, they probably wanted it to. I know there's probably movies. I think there's a Hulu series on this. I haven't read any of those, and I think this is a series now. I haven't read any of the other books, but I thought this was great. I think everybody should read it, but on their own terms. I don't think you'll really get much if you're like forced to read it in high school, because I hated like every book I read in high school. I think it's something you have to read on your own time, on your own volition, to get the most out of the book. So the next book was Hiroshima by John Hersey. This is a good, like, quick book. It was originally a article in the New York Times, or I don't know if it's an article, but a story in the New York Times right after Hiroshima, and it follows the lives of how many different people? I want to say like 4 different people and basically their experience when the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. So this one I also read for the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge, and it's definitely not a book I would normally pick up. I think it felt like it was missing something when I read it, but again, this was written so long ago. It wasn't written as a novel, it was written as an article. Again, I want to say it was like 100 pages. It was pretty short. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, but really expected it to be a lot more heart-jerking and meaningful and, you know, making me want to cry when it didn't. So, probably good. But, you know, yeah. So, the next one, also for the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge, I think this is the last one of those in this month, which is Nancy Drew, The Mystery at the Lilac Inn. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It was great for nostalgia purposes. It reminded me of reading Nancy Drew in the summers at my grandparents' house and like playing in the library and rearranging all of her books in her like upstairs and down her stair. But everyone has got so much better at writing detective and mystery novels that I think it was only really good for nostalgia, and I probably wouldn't like go and reread the whole Nancy Drew series, if you know what I mean. Alright, so the next one is a book called Drawdown by Paul Hawken. The official title is Drawdown, the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. So when I went home, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago, my mom gave me like a Patagonia catalog or magazine. I wouldn't say it was more of like a magazine because I don't think it was like selling like a J. Crew catalog or a Victoria's Secret catalog or anything like that. And it had books recommendations in there, kind of about climate change, how you can help save the environment in true Patagonia fashion, and this was one of the books. And I've read a few more since then, or have them on my to be read list. So this one is basically, you know, how can, it's pretty self-explanatory. How can we help reverse global warming? How can we stop it? I loved that they used peer-reviewed science and mathematical models, because if anybody knows anything about me, I love metrics, I love science, I love numbers. They are kind of what make the most sense to me. Those are what relates and connects to me. So, but aside from that, I didn't find it anything more meaningful than hopefully most people already know, or maybe it's just because I've read a lot of books about climate change and about, you know, the scientific studies of these sorts. But, you know, replace fossil fuels with renewable energy. Also, I put this on my Goodreads review. I don't leave reviews for all books. I kind of got in a phase of it. But I put all the, like, actionable items in the Goodreads review. So, if you want to reference back to it. But replace fossil fuels with renewable energy, eat less meat, change how we grow plants, lower traffic congestion, more fuel-efficient transportation, protect forests and wetlands, get a better fridge, and educate each other. So I give this 4 out of 5 stars. You know, it has all the information, it has the science to back it up, but I don't think you need to read like 1,000 books that say the same message, because I feel like that's repetitive. Unless you need a refresher, but this is a good book if you are looking for that kind of information. The next one was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, which is about a woman who, you know, she broke up with her boyfriend, she lost her job, and she needed quick money. She didn't have a place to live. She was crashing on her friend's couch, and she sees an ad on Craigslist for apartment sitting. It's at this beautiful building outside of Central Park, you know, kind of like a Central Park West. I know I actually looked it up to see what book it was, or what building it was like in real life, and I just don't remember it at this point. But she apartment sits for what I think it was like $2,000 a week. And then, you know, once she's there, she hears about how it's haunted and people keep leaving, and she like makes a friend there, and she leaves the next day, and she like runs away, never to be found again. So it is kind of, you know, that kind of thriller of like, why did these people go missing? How can we save them? Am I gonna get hurt? And from there, I have read 2 other Riley Sager books. I am a really big fan. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Not that it's bad, just I felt the need to give it 4 out of 5 stars. So I would recommend this one. The next one, I was reading for some time. I had it on my nightstand. I have the hard copy over here, but I'm not gonna go up and get it. But it's Woman Code by Elisa Vitti. I've heard a lot of podcasts with her. I know she's big on that, so Retrograde podcast. And I believe she was on Goop once or twice, and she just pops around like the podcast space. And I got recommended this, or this book has also been recommended by many bloggers and Instagram influencers like Rachel Mansfield, Jules Hunt, I forgot her new last name, but basically it's perfect your cycle, amplify your fertility, supercharge your sex drive, and become a power source. So basically how you can use your body to, basically it's biohacking for women, because biohacking and like the bulletproof diet doesn't work with women's cycles, because we have a circadian rhythm, and what is the other rhythm? This is embarrassing since I read the whole book and I can't remember the other rhythm. But anyway, you have like 2 rhythms, and a lot of it doesn't play into effect with how our cycles up. This is a terrible review. How we can maintain our hormones, our weight, our energy by working within our cycles. She has a great app called MyFlow, MyFLO, that I would highly recommend if you don't want to read the book. It's basically all in there, where you can figure out like which foods you should eat at which time of your cycle, what kind of exercises, because you know, if you do HIIT workouts all 4 weeks, you're losing the effects because it's only beneficial at certain times. And she has all the science in there, and I think it's great. You can also listen to the podcast with her, but I like having the book and I like having the references there. I know she has another one, I haven't read that one, but I know this is the main one. So Woman Code, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Just, it wasn't amazing, it wasn't funny to read, it was just informational. The next one was In Defense of Food, an Eater's Manifesto by Michael Pollan. This was also in the Patagonia magazine and recommendations, which is basically, you know, Americans eat shitty and it's ruining us. And this is just about that. Do I still eat cereal almost every day? Yeah. So obviously it didn't trigger me that much. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, but it's basically saying our diet sucks. We need to eat better. It will save us. It will save the planet. Food chain. Okay. Read it if you want to figure out how to eat better. Okay. Now we're getting into some deeper books here. So the next one is Mrs. Everything by Jennifer Weiner. Jennifer Weiner. This book is everywhere, and I struggled to get through it. I literally was like, I need to get through this GD book today. The last day I read it, and I literally like read it or listened to it all freaking day long. And I really wanted to like this book. It was just really hard to get through. So essentially there's these 2 sisters who grew up in Detroit in 1950s. I think it starts in their teen years. We have Joe, who's a tomboy, and Bethy, who's like a girly girl. And this book has so much packed into it. So I thought I would really like it. I saw it recommended in like 1,000 places, 1,000. I don't know. Then I saw it in Hello Magazine. I was like, oh, Detroit, Hello Magazine, I'm gonna read it. And growing up in Detroit, I did see a lot of like really funny parallels of like Saunders chocolate cake, or you know, the wealthy people living in West Bloomfield, her like wealthy girlfriend living in West Bloomfield, and you know, their rich uncle living in Southfield with an Ingram pool. I found that a lot of that really funny. That she did a really good job researching on that. But it just had, I don't think I am the intended audience to read this book, since I first of all mainly read shorter books and mainly read thrillers, even though it doesn't seem like that based on the books I've read this month. But it just covers a lot. It covers what, like 6 decades of their life, from moving to Connecticut to the South, and just, you know, it has family tragedy, it has just so much in it that the first half was really good and I really liked it and I devoured it, and then I feel like it slowed down once they started getting older and marriage and kids, and I just lost interest. I don't know if that she like got really excited about writing the first half and got it all action packed, and then it was like didn't like it anymore. I don't know. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't terrible. It was good writing. It was a good book, but it wasn't great. And that was that book. The next one was For the Love by Jen Hatmaker? I don't know. So I got this book for $2 at my local half-price books. Not knowing who this girl is, this woman is, not knowing what this book was. I knew it was a religious book. Thought I would give it a try. Did not like it at all. First of all, it's the full title is For the Love, Fighting for Grace in a World of Impossible Standards. It's not about grace. Again, I don't think I'm its intended audience. It's a lot about raising children and being married. I don't have children and I'm not married. And just, you know, she lost, there was like one good chapter, and then I think it was like quickly followed by a chapter about how leggings aren't pants, and I was like, am I in high school again fighting with a theology teacher about how leggings are pants, and you can't tell me that they're not. And I'm just like, this is too much. So I was going to give it 1 out of 5 stars. Then I googled her to see what she was about. Apparently it's an HGTV show. Don't care. And she has apparently changed her mind a little bit, and you know, has been going through a rough time trying to make positive social change and, you know, not hate gay people. So I gave it 2 stars for a little redemption. Apparently she has a podcast. I won't listen to the podcast. I won't read another book of hers. I didn't think it was funny. Some people thought it was funny, like found her humorous. I didn't think she was humorous. And I thought a lot of things she said was offensive, even as someone who's grown up religious for, you know, my whole life. And I found a lot of it offensive. So, not for it. Next one. The next one was very lovely to read after Mrs. Everything, which is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And this book by Grady Hendrix. So this was a Bad on Paper book club pick from, I want to say, March, and I'm just really behind on those book clubs because, you know, quarantine hit me hard and depression. So I wanted to read this book from it, finally got a chance to reading it, and I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. So basically it takes place in the 1990s in Charleston, South Carolina, and this group of women in this suburb, these housewives, have a book club where they read classics, which sounds real boring, and then they kind of branch off and start reading like The Stranger Beside Me and, you know, these murder books. and one of them is afraid to tell her husband, so she says it's a Bible study. And basically this very attractive man comes in, and the grandma has or mother-in-law / grandma has a really strong reaction because she's like, oh, he's a killer, and turns out he's a vampire. And then, you know, the Southern Book Club's guide to slaying vampires, and I thought it was hilarious. It does get gruesome towards the end, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I loved it. Just not many books get 5 stars from me, I guess. What was the one that got 5 stars from me earlier? Oh yeah, Catch-22. Okay, so yes, highly recommend that one. Okay, and talking about 5 stars, here's the next one, which is Andre Leonteli, The Chiffon Trenches, a memoir. Growing up as someone who loved fashion, I loved reading this book. I love Andre Leonteli. I knew I would be his best friend, and after reading this, I was like, yeah, we would be pretty tight. So basically, talks about him growing up in the South, you know, this Jim Crow era, becoming highly educated, going to get his master's in French at Columbia, him wanting to become a professor, but then, you know, ends up living on his friend's floor to, you know, a room at the YMCA because he really wanted to pursue fashion. His relationship with Karl Lagerfeld and Anna Wintour and Grace Mirabella, and basically his rising and his contributing editor, his time at WWD, and I just thought it was amazing. I thought it was great. I mean, honestly, I don't think I listened to the audiobook and he narrated it, so I don't think that anything he would read to me I would hate at all, but loved it. I guess this is kind of like a Black history thing in light of all of the riots and Black Lives Matter. Like, I know a lot of people are reading more books by Black authors. This was unintentional, but is a great story about a Black man in fashion in the 90s, or not in the 90s, but in the 80s and 90s. Like, amazing story of how he had to rise up through the ranks and how kind of race affected that as well. So yes, 5 stars. I loved it, and I don't think it was too long. I want to say it was under 300 pages. The next one was on the UN Women's Shared Shelf book club, and this was like a quick story. Like, I don't even think this counts as a book, but it was Cinderella Liberator by Rebecca Solnit. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. I don't know what I expected from a fairy tale, but I didn't like it. I didn't like the writing. I listened to the narration as well, and I didn't like the narration. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. They tried to make it better, but no. The next one was The Overdue Life of Amy Blyer by Kelly Harms. And this book was on my TBR for a while, and I just didn't expect that much from it, but I loved it. So basically, there's this mom whose husband left her and was like, yeah, I'm staying in Hong Kong forever. And she has 2 children, and, you know, she had to quickly find a job, and she works as a librarian, and it's summer, and the dad comes back and was like, I want to take the kids for the summer, basically, and she lives in New York for the summer, while the kids are in Pennsylvania, and the dad's taking care of her. Basically, she has this great life there, you know, she's dating a lot of men, hanging out with her friends, and she kind of has this conflict of if she wants to go back to her old life, or stay in her new fun life. And I just thought it was great. I gave it 5 stars. Surprisingly, I just did not expect much from it. I expected it like a 3 or 4 star book, but I loved it. So yes, highly recommend that book. We're approaching the end. We have 3 more left. The next one was A Study in Charlotte, which is the reverse gender roles of Charlotte, of basically Holmes and Watson. So the great granddaughter or grandniece, great granddaughter, sorry, 3 greats granddaughter of Sherlock Holmes meets the great grandson of Watson at their boarding school, and basically they're framed for a murder, of course. I gave this book 2 out of 5 stars. I did not like it. So there is also kind of a love story of Watson really loves Charlotte Holmes, and she's just kind of weird and druggy and just isolated, and I just didn't like the dynamics. I didn't like the storyline. I didn't really like Charlotte. No, not for me. Could be for you, not for me. So 2 out of 5 stars. And then, so these are the ones I read and finished today, the last day of June. So the first one was The Last Flight by Julia Clark. And I know this book like just came out, which is essentially this woman, Claire Cook, is married to this highfalutin philanthropist in New York. And she's trying to escape because he's really abusive to her. And while she's in the airport, she meets this woman named Ava, who is also trying to escape from her life. And essentially they switch tickets, and Eve goes to Puerto Rico, where Charlotte's supposed to be going, and Charlotte goes, sorry, not Charlotte, I'm thinking about Charlotte Holmes. Eve goes to Puerto Rico, where Claire is supposed to be, and Claire is going to Oakland, California, where Ava is supposed to go. I'm getting names all mixed up. But the flight to Puerto Rico crashes, and presumably someone is trying to kill Claire. Presumably it's her husband, and basically a story of running away from your old life. I expected this to be better than it was. I don't know if it was just really hyped up. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's a decent book, decent thriller mystery, not the best. I would recommend a Riley Sager instead, but not terrible. I kind of expected it to be like The Flight Attendant by an author who I don't remember, and I really liked that book. My mom really loved that book, but this one I was unimpressed with. Okay, and the last one, which is boring, I'm not gonna rate it. I'm not gonna, go into deep in it, but it is called The Making of a Manager: What We Do When Everyone Looks to You by Julie Zhou, which is basically, a book for work, for a management position, and how you should lead as a manager. I do think there's some really good actionable advice. Again, with most self-help books or most business books, they're not all going to be winners. They're not all going to be like a holy grail. It was decent. I would say maybe 3 or 4 out of 5 stars if I were to rate it. I'll rate it right now. I'll rate it 3 stars. But yeah, not a bad book. Not a terrific book. I wouldn't say it's like the best management book I've ever read. But with that, I will leave you guys with some great books. Hopefully I will have a book haul coming soon. It's so close to me. The box is so close to me, and they just won't deliver it. So coming soon, more books to be read. And until then, keep reading, have fun, have a great July, or whenever you're watching.